Now, a nearly 7-week war involving Iran, the United States and Israel is now exposing a major vulnerability, and not just on the battlefield, but in the global economy. What began as a military conflict has triggered one of the biggest energy shocks in decades, driving up fuel prices, slowing global growth, and putting political pressure on U.S. President Donald Trump. The conflict escalated in late February when U.S. and Israeli forces launched strikes on Iran. In response, Iran leveraged its control over the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway that carries about 20% of the world's oil supply. Well, at times, shipping through the strait was severely restricted, choking global energy flows and triggering a supply shock. The impact was immediate. Oil prices surged sharply, at one stage approaching or exceeding $100 per barrel, fueling inflation across major economies. The International Monetary Fund has already warned that the war could cut global growth to around 3.1%, which is down from 3.4% last year, as energy costs ripple through markets. Inside the United States, the economic pressure is mounting. Higher fuel prices have pushed up costs for transport, aviation, and agriculture, with farmers hit by rising fertilizer and fuel bills. Now, that's translating into broader inflation and growing frustration among consumers and key voter groups. For Trump, this war is now as much an economic challenge as a military one. Despite weeks of airstrikes, the U.S. has not achieved key goals, including halting Iran's nuclear ambitions or forcing regime change. Facing rising economic pressure and political risks ahead of elections, Trump shifted strategy, moving from military escalation to diplomacy in early April. Now, there are now tentative signs of easing. Oil tankers have begun moving again through the Strait of Hormuz for the first time in weeks following ceasefire efforts. Markets responded quickly. Oil prices fell nearly 9%, and global stocks rebounded on hopes of de-escalation. But the damage is already done. The war has been described as the largest disruption to global oil supply in modern history, with long-term risks to inflation, trade, and economic stability. And while the talks continue, major sticking points remain, especially over Iran's nuclear program and sanctions. So even as oil begins to flow again, the economic aftershocks of the conflict are far from over. From rising prices to slowing growth, the Iran war is now shaping not just geopolitics, but the global economy itself. And for leaders like Trump, the biggest battlefield may no longer be military, but economic.